All right, welcome to episode 14. 1-4.
Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. That's right. We've done this 14 times, so hopefully we're getting somewhat better now.
As our father would say, the big 1-4.
I don't know. I'm not sure why it's the big 1-4, but whatever.
That's what he says. It's our birthday. Whatever. He puts the two numbers together.
Or as our father would also say, get out of bounds.
That's right. Get out of bounds. The other thing, what we wanted to lead off with was we've reached more than the halfway point in the NFL season.
Yeah.
This season feels, to me, it really feels longer because, not only is it the 1 week, but normally when we get to Thanksgiving week, we've got 4 or 5 games. So, we're kind of in the stretch run, right? But in this case, there's like half the NFL has 7 games left. So we still got.
And it's still like there's a bunch of teams where it's like, they might make the playoffs. Like you look at like the Vikings, it's like, all right, well they're kind of moving in the right direction now. I think they're still under 500, but they're moving in the right direction. Like the Colts they're over 500 and they just beat the crap out of the Bills. So it's like, okay, so there's a bunch of teams that are like, there's a bunch of teams that are still in it. And it's kind of cool because it kind of for the next month and a half, it's like there's still going to be a bunch of teams that are right there where they're just like, well, if we just win the next couple games, it's, so yeah, that makes it kind of interesting.
Yeah, we have the extra game and the extra playoff spot. So
that's right.
So it really, what I will credit the NFL for is, they really do a good job of creating, drama, creating interest because a lot of teams have a shot.
Let's be honest, a lot of these teams that I'm saying are in it, like they're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they can make the playoffs,
That's right.
And you make the playoffs, you get into some game, you get a favorable matchup. Who the hell knows, right? It's like,
Hey, just give us hope. Something us Dolphin fans don't know a lot about. Just give us some hope.
Yeah, there's a little bit of hope. The Dolphins just won, so they're 4-7. So they,
3 in a row.
Then it's like okay. And look, Tua was good yesterday. They do a lot of short passing, but he's like right on the money with all the short passes, all the outs he's thrown to the sideline. He's like right on the guy, And then that long that long bomb he threw down the field. That was a busted coverage, but he had to break out of the pocket and then he just chucked the ball down the field. Like, he got the ball down the field. So, granted, I think they should have beaten the Jets by 2 touchdowns, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, all right. Well, let's get the Dolphins out of the way. I have a question about them for later, but yeah, okay. This is one of those things that go back and forth every week on, what are they going to do? Are they going to fire the coach at the end of the season? How is this going to go?
Yeah.
I like that the way they played, they got a turnover. They
realized they got to blitz a lot, which, that's not necessarily ideal, but that's what they got to do. So,
Yeah, it does concern me that they struggled that much against the Jets, but
they just I don't know. Like it was just kind of funny because I'm watching the game and who was it? It was Greg Gumbel and Greg Gumbel or
it's Greg Gumbel, yeah.
Right, Brian Gumbel's okay, right. Greg Gumbel and Adam Archuleta and Adam Archuleta just kept saying, I don't know why they're not trying to throw the ball down the field more because the Jets secondary has been just getting roasted the past few weeks, and so. Yeah, and they threw a couple passes. Like they got one pass that threw down the field, and they caught it, and then it got brought back because there was a penalty. That was the other thing. The Dolphins got penalized a bunch. So that's one of those things you kind of say. If a team gets penalized a bunch, that's coaching, right? I don't know, So, but granted, the officiating was all over the place in that game. They're like calling this guy for interference, but they didn't call this other guy for interference. So yeah, it's. It's one of those things where I just kind of I almost hesitate to make any really big judgments because I'm like their offensive line's not good, and I guess they just don't trust it, so they're not gonna try to make some plays. But I just feel like even though Tua's limited, I feel like you got to throw the ball down the field 4 or 5 times a game just to try to get some, because getting a 65-yard touchdown pass like that, that kind of makes things a little bit easier, because before that they were having to go, down the field slowly, like 7, 8, 9-yard pass plays. And then they probably should have ran the ball more too, because they were running the ball pretty well. Like Myles Gaskin was getting, he was gashing them for like 7 or 8 yards a pop. And I don't feel like they gave him the ball enough, but I don't know.
Yeah, we're just looking for improvement. We'll see where we are, a month from now, 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, look, if they can beat Carolina, is the Carolina game at home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, if they can beat Carolina, we'll see. I'm not terribly confident in it, because I just feel like, if Carolina gets any kind of pass rush, I just don't know. But
Carolina has a good defense, so that'll be a tough game. They have 2 games at home, and then they have a bye, and then another home game, and then they're on the road. They go to New Orleans and to Tennessee, and then they have the Patriots at home to finish off the season.
Yeah. But it was kind of funny today. I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and he was saying that he made this really funny analogy about Kirk Cousins. He goes, I forget what it was, something to do with home prices, but he's basically like, look, if your quarterback isn't as good as Kirk Cousins, you need to get a new one. Okay. But if you have Kirk Cousins, you're probably not winning the Super Bowl. So it's kind of like, which I thought that's a pretty good. He's like right in the middle there. It's like, can you be at least as good as Kirk Cousins? Because then you can win some games. Yeah,
it was the median home price or median.
Yeah, the median home price. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I thought that was a pretty funny analogy. So, yeah, that was kind of like, can Tua be like a poor man's Kirk Cousins? Like, possibly.
Yeah, hey, I've moved on from Tua being the savior. I think, if he's a solid quarterback. So this is something that I wanted to talk about with the Dolphins was, one thing I'm consistently hearing is, the Dolphins are going to move on from him at the end of the season. And
yeah, I don't necessarily think they are, because I don't know who they're going to get to who's much better. I think we've talked about this before, but I'm not trying to be. I'm definitely not a Tua homer, but like I'm watching these games intently, and I'm not just watching the play, like the result of every play. I'm watching like, what is he doing in the pocket? Is he going through his progression? Does he look comfortable? Is he stepping up when he needs to step up? Is he able to kind of avoid the rush a little bit and make good decisions, make good throws, so, and I just kind of think, like, given the fact that he's not an elite quarterback, that doesn't necessarily mean he can't be a productive quarterback, but I think he needs more time, and that's, now granted, part of the problem is he can't really stay healthy, so if he could stay healthy the rest of the year and keep playing the rest of the year, regardless of the wins and losses, that'll be really good for him going into the offseason. And then especially if they keep Charlie Fry, they keep the same offense, and then if they were able to draft anybody or bring in, any more free agents on offense to give him more help, then it's like, okay, then we can kind of get a better idea, like how, can this guy, really be solid, stable at quarterback and put you in a position to win, a good number of games every year. So.
Yeah, the Deshaun Watson trade notwithstanding, if
that could end up happening.
I think
that all bets are off with that. I don't know. I would kind of prefer that they don't do that, because they're just going to give up draft picks and they need a lot of help on the rest of the roster. So, and Deshaun Watson was bad on a bad. Well, he put up good numbers on a bad team, and they didn't make the playoffs. So I don't know. The Dolphins aren't really a good team. So
yeah, I think there's 20 teams in the NFL that would want Deshaun Watson. So. If they get him, I understand. Otherwise, I'm not sure where this mystery great quarterback that they're going to get as a free agent is going to be. I'm a little confused as to why people.
Good quarterbacks would struggle the way our offensive line has played in some of these games. So it's kind of like, address that first. Like, address that. If you could run the ball a little, because they ran the ball yesterday, and that made things a little easier for Tua. So it's like, okay, get the offensive line, get the running game going, Anyway, yeah, that's kind of, I don't want to go on and on about the Dolphins, but yeah, I did think it was kind of, it's weird that people like Colin especially is like, oh, they're gonna move on from him. It's like, well, all right. I kind of feel like they're gonna take the Deshaun Watson trade out of it, because that could end up happening. beyond that, I feel like the organization is basically like, look, we've put ourselves in this position. So, especially if, like, say Tua plays pretty well the rest of the year, like he doesn't throw a bunch of interceptions, they win a few games, it looks like he's showing some improvement, then it's kind of like, well, we're kind of in this situation. We've drafted him. We tried to draft people to help him out. Let's draft more people or bring in more free agents to help him out and just go with it, because what else we're going to get that's that much better? I mean, they need to make the playoffs next year, but it's kind of like, what, you're just going to start over with somebody else? Like, I don't know that necessarily makes sense, but I don't know that this organization makes a lot of good decisions. So who the hell knows?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this in the offseason, obviously, but I mean, who are the Dolphins going to get? Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andy Dalton, Mitch Trubisky? Like, who are we signing that is?
And second of all, look, if you watch them play, they've designed a whole offense around Tua. Okay, so I kind of think, and given that he's not elite, he needs more time to develop. It's kind of like, well, if we're really going to see if this guy's anything, we've put a lot into this. Why would we just bail like halfway through? They still might trade for Deshaun Watson, but
right. And he's going to, and financially, he's going to be cheaper than just about anybody you would get.
Absolutely. Yep.
So anyway, all right. So we'll root for the Dolphins. We'll see how it goes the rest of the season. Okay, so I wanted to go through some things that just surprised me, impressed me. Over
the first half of the season, or just this past week?
Over the first half of the season, or this past weekend, but mostly this. So, I mean, I thought, it's funny that to say this now. I mean, I thought Indianapolis, like what they played like yesterday against Buffalo, I thought they would be a lot closer to that this season than they've been for the most part.
Well, one thing, I think that some team, like especially bringing a new quarterback, it seems like teams need a little bit of time to figure stuff out. So it seems like they've kind of figured out. And the thing is, like, you can criticize Carson Wentz. That's fine. He tends to be a little too risky sometimes. He makes some huge mistakes sometimes, but he's really talented. He can, when he's on playing well, you can look pretty damn good, especially if you can run the ball. So it's like, I get why they traded for him, why the Colts traded for him. And it's like, look, maybe they're kind of figuring stuff out. So, this, I think in the NFL, like, you got to have a good quarterback, and why not take a chance? I mean, I kind of almost look at him like Brett Favre, like, except he gets injured. It's like, yeah, he's kind of risky, but like, he can be pretty damn good. He's really talented, so if you can get the right, coach to rein him in, which maybe Frank Reich is that guy, because, he was really successful with him in Philadelphia. So,
yeah, I before the season, I thought, okay, this team's good on defensive and offensive lines. They can run the ball. Right. They'll break. They've got talent everywhere. They'll break Carson Wentz in. They'll be good. I'm like, they'll be the best team in that division. And they were 1-3, 1-4, and it was just like, what is happening? And I heard this stat today. I thought this was really cool. So they've played 10 or 11 games this year.
6 and 5, 11.
Yeah, 11. So they played 11 games. Okay. So Carson Wentz has 6 turnovers in 11 games. Okay. Last year, through 11 games, he had 19 turnovers.
Okay.
So well, like, yes. Now he makes some throws.
But the thing is, usually it's like they come in bunches. They'll have one game and they'll throw 2 picks, and you're like, dude, what the hell are you doing?
Right. And they're horrible. Yeah, it's not like, oh, I missed a guy or a ball got tipped. No, he's being tackled and he decides to just throw it up in the air, for the other team to pick it up. Some of his turnovers are he has destructive turnovers, but the thing is, it shows how big a deal people watching highlights and stuff is, because some of his turnovers are bad, but there's not that many. It's half a turnover a game, like those numbers, you can live with those numbers. I'm shocked what they did to Buffalo. I'm not surprised that they played well. I'm shocked that they just destroyed them. But so the Colts really shocked me. Or I thought they would be better. That was one of those teams I was really buying into before the season.
Now they're starting to look like how you thought. It's just like, why didn't this happen earlier? But That's the way the NFL is sometimes, I guess.
Well, and they had offensive line injuries. They had, whatever. And if they had, if he doesn't screw up a couple of games there with some bad turnovers, I mean, they'd be, 7-4 or 8-3 right now. So
Right.
it just shows how close the margins are. Obviously the Saints lost yesterday, but I've been impressed by them so far. Like, I realize they've had to change quarterbacks and stuff, but that's another team that's solid up front. They've been missing Alvin Kamara, which is part of the reason why their offense hasn't been very good the past couple of weeks. But but I was out on the Saints. I thought before the season that this team's got nothing.
Well, Sean Payton's a good coach, and their defense have been good the last few years. So, and it looks like they've drafted well. So it's like, okay, they can tread water. I mean, they're 5-5, so it's not like they don't have a quarterback. So it's basically just
Yeah, but I thought they would be terrible with Jameis Winston, and they're actually pretty good with Trevor Siemian. I mean, I'm really blown away by that. The Ravens and the Browns, I'm surprised by in different ways. Okay, so the Ravens, I'm surprised by. I mean, I guess part of it makes sense. They're really banged up, but I'm surprised that they really had to struggle to win some of these games. Now, yesterday notwithstanding, right? Lamar Jackson's out. Obviously, you're going to have a hard time winning. So
they still won the game, and they're 7-3. Now, I kind of agree with you. I think their injuries are too bad to really overcome in terms of getting far in the playoffs. But I think they're 7-3. I think they'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm impressed with what they've gotten out of the team that they have, because they've had to pull some of these games completely out of their rear end. I mean, there's a couple of them that they should not have won.
Yeah, to me that's coaching, that's culture, and that's also Lamar Jackson has been special in some of these games.
Yep.
So
the Cleveland Browns, I am surprised by how average they are. I mean, I thought them, like we talked about the Colts, I thought the Cleveland Browns were similar to the Colts roster. They have all that stuff. And, I mean, they've had injuries too, but everybody's had injuries.
Good teams.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they played really well against Cincinnati, but they really haven't played well in about 6 weeks. I mean,
Baker Mayfield's he's got a heel injury, he's got a torn labrum. Like, he probably shouldn't have played the last 4 weeks.
Yep.
He probably should have let things try to heal up. I mean, they won that one game with Case Keenum. Like, that team is built on running the ball, and Myles Garrett rushing the quarterback. So, just run the ball. But Baker Mayfield, like I said, I don't think he should be playing, because it's But again, you can't really rely on him to be elite in any of these games. You can't really rely on him to throw the ball a bunch. I mean, people were like, "Oh, the Browns look good against the Bengals," and I'm like, yeah, they always look good against the Bengals, because it's the Bengals. Like, it's not.
And they looked terrible against the Lions yesterday. I mean, that was awful. And so one thing I wanted to bring up with was after the game, the Browns fans were booing because Cleveland is a serious sports town, man. They're like, you come out and you don't play well, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Boston, you will get booed. That's how it works. So they asked Baker Mayfield about it after the game, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't care about the fans booing, or I don't care. I don't care what the fans do." And it's like, bro, like, where is the PR? Like, Baker Mayfield's in all these commercials. Where is your PR director, bro? Like, honestly, you don't tell the fans in Cleveland you don't care about them after they already are booing you.
Yeah,
not a good move. Like, sometimes these athletes, it's like, guys, like, just be smart, man. It's never a good idea to go against the fans, ever. Yeah. You never win.
Don't pout in public. Not a good idea.
And his wife's on Twitter saying, "Oh, he's playing as hard as he can, and it's blah blah blah, and he's he's the toughest guy out there, and blah blah blah." And it's like, okay, great. Then keep him at home, and you take care of him, okay? Like, stop with this bullshit, Well,
again, that's why I don't think he should have been playing the last few weeks. Like, there's an aspect of, like, playing, you're playing hurt, like, that's kind of admirable, but then sometimes it's like, yeah, but dude, if, like, there's a better option, then you need to kind of take a step back and, wait.
Well, and you're compromising your team, but this is the coach's job. Like, yes, we can all get mad at Baker, but coach needs to step in here. Like, dude, no. I understand you think you can play, but I've got to do what's best for the team.
Right.
Period. And I know Baker Mayfield is, he's looking for a new contract or whatever. There's nothing that's going to happen in these games that's going to change what's going to happen with his contract.
Yeah.
So they've got an issue there. I don't know how they're going to deal with it. The next thing I put was the Cowboys defense. And I was going to say until yesterday, but actually they were pretty good on defense yesterday.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the Chiefs at home scored 19 points, and I mean they didn't. The Chiefs didn't. You would have thought that maybe the Chiefs would have tried to score more points, given that Dallas was struggling to score because Dallas didn't have. They had 2 offensive linemen out. They had a couple of receivers out. Receivers were dropping the ball. So yeah, and you're on the road. That's pretty good.
yeah, I think I like where they're at. I mean, obviously the problem, like I've said this before on our podcast, is the Cowboys. If they have injuries, they're going to have serious problems because they don't have a deep team. They don't have a whole lot of guys. They have a handful of guys that they need to be playing every week, and their left tackle's out, and that changes the whole dynamic of the team. But that being said, the Cowboys defense kept them in that game yesterday when they were really overwhelmed. I mean, by the way, speaking of defense, the Chiefs defense was legit yesterday. I don't know what happened. I don't know where they've been.
On defense.
Right. Yeah, I don't know where they've been, where they've been this whole season, but the defense showed up yesterday. They're all, honestly, like from what I'm seeing, I think the Chiefs offense is coming along. It's not great, but I think it's coming along. I think they're kind of working it out. And, what happened in the AFC so far is now wide open. Nobody can put,
you have 4 losses, the 1 seed is in play.
Right.
Because Tennessee is not the same team without Derrick Henry. They have 3 losses. They're going to have 4. So they're probably going to have 5 before the end of the season.
Well, I was going to say, you could have 5 or 6 losses and get the 1 seed this year.
Well, if you have 4 losses right now, that's probably better off. If you have 5 or 6, you can't lose again. But yeah, I mean, it's totally wide open.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what's happened. Like we thought Kansas City and Buffalo before the season.
Well, but to be honest, at the beginning of the year, I thought, well, it's the AFC is Kansas City's to lose, right? And no, that's not the case. Now, they've improved from how they were 2 months ago, like vastly improved, but Nick Wright this morning on First Things First. Yeah, the Chiefs are back. They're the scariest team in the NFL. They're gonna the road to the Super Bowl through the AFC goes through Kansas City, literally or figuratively, whichever one you want. And it's just like, dude, no, okay, you're going way too far. Look, their defense is way better than it was. Okay. Mahomes still turned the ball over yesterday. They only scored 19 points, okay? The reason the Chiefs were the scariest team in the league is because they could go into a playoff game, get down 24-0, and then beat you by like 25 points, okay? That's scary. You only scoring 19 points at home when the other team, 2 of their offensive linemen are out and they can't score, and you only score 19 points, So look, they have Mahomes, they have Andy Reid. They'll keep getting better. But in terms of like trying to pick one team out of the AFC that you're like, oh, well, this team's going to clearly better than everybody else, it's ridiculous. I think it's all just going to come down to matchups when you get into the playoffs. It's going to be like, how do we match up with this team? Are we playing at home? Are we playing on the road? Do we have any injuries? It's all going to kind of come down to that stuff. So like people who are like, oh, the Patriots are back to it. It's like, no. The Patriots are pretty good, okay? Their defense is really good. They can run the ball. Their offensive line's good. Mac Jones is fine, okay? He's fine. He's coming along. You kind of see every week, maybe he makes a few throws where you're like, oh, that was pretty nice. He threw it into a tight window there. He threw that into double coverage and got his guy to catch it. That's fine. But again, like it's not like they're this really dynamic over-the-top offense. It's kind of a simple form. It's like play defense, run the ball, control the clock, So I can understand if you like the Patriots because they have the best coach, that's fine. But it's like it's going to come down to matchups every week,
Yeah, well, what I will say is this: from what I'm seeing, watching the games yesterday, what has kind of come back into style and what is noticeable now is toughness. The teams that were tough yesterday won. The Colts, the Chiefs, San Francisco.
Okay.
Um, they were tough, and they beat you up on the line of scrimmage. They dominated physically. That's what the Patriots do.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of what we're seeing with all these teams banged up as they are. The tougher teams are winning, and so but I'm not just like you. I'm not going to jump to conclusions yet. We still have, like I said, we're at Thanksgiving and we're just past the halfway point.
Yeah,
So
you could have a significant injury, and plus we've got games coming up where it's like the Patriots are playing the Bills, the Patriots are playing the Titans. We've got other. There's a bunch of other games coming up that are going to kind of show you more about a lot of these teams. So let's all take. I mean, like Minnesota looks pretty good now. They've kind of I think they're still under 500, but like they could be a playoff team now. They could be closing in on that. So it's like. But we still have a lot of time left. So,
yeah, it's fun, and it's just how close the margins are. I mean, Kirk Cousins basically threw a game-ending interception yesterday, and the Packers guy dropped it. So, I mean, it was that close to being over. All right, so before the season, there were two coaches that looked ridiculous. They were when they were their first meeting on the podiums, and
Sirianni for Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and
Nick Sirianni for Philadelphia and Dan Campbell for the Lions. It looked like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. The Lions are a disaster. The Eagles, before the season, I thought it was a mistake drafting Jalen Hurts. I never really, didn't think he was going to be anything in the NFL. And I wouldn't say I still don't totally believe in him, but he won yesterday, and he's won, five. They're 5-6, I think. So, what do you think of Jalen Hurts?
Well, obviously he's running around. That's he can get away from people. He has escapability, so that's good. I mean, he's kind of small, but he hasn't been getting hurt. So okay, I mean, I remember the thing with him coming out of college was like, yeah, he kind of sticks on his first receiver and he doesn't come off it, and which I've heard that in the NFL too. But I don't know, he's winning games. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where like, I kind of feel like it's like, all right, he's going to play the rest of this year, When was he drafted? Last year?
2 years ago. 2 years ago. 20.
Did he come out the same
2020. 2020, yeah.
Okay. All right. So he got him under contract for another couple of years. I mean, what I kind of say is like, when some guy comes out and has a good year or a decent year, whatever, good year is for him, it's like, okay, can you do that next year? And not only can you stay at that level, and then is there more? Can you add more wrinkles and stuff? Then it's like, okay, then maybe it's something you can build around. I don't know. I mean, because I just think like with small quarterbacks, like there isn't much of a precedent for it. There's Russell Wilson and Drew Brees, and Doug Flutie was good for a stretch in like 1998. Like it's like, so I mean, it's obviously easier now because you can't, there's so many rules protecting the quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where like if he wants to last, he's going to have to keep getting better from the pocket and reading defenses and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, what I'll say is that maybe we're wrong about the Philadelphia coach. I mean, it's good coaching. They're doing what's necessary to win games. He's not throwing for a lot of yards. He's maybe throwing for 150 yards a game.
Lamar Jackson doesn't throw for a lot of yards in some games.
Yeah, yeah. So, but they're not. So he's not really a throw from the pocket guy right now. They're making it work somehow. I mean, what's hard to tell is that their division is so bad. So if you're around 500 in that division, it makes you make us think that you're better than you are. But so yeah, I don't think you can win big that way. But you know what? They've figured out a way to win these games, and they put up 40 points yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like it's you kind of have these ideas about these different quarterbacks. Where it's like, well, let me just see what the guy actually does. not just highlights, not just a few plays here and there, but like, yeah, if you score 40 points and like if you're putting up points consistently, that's something, So I think people need to they need to slow down on some of this stuff, Like I think it's kind of easy to tell if a guy's not elite, but it's kind of like with Tua, it's like it's easy to tell if a guy's not elite, but in terms of what he actually is, I do feel like it can take a couple of years for them to kind of figure out, can this guy really play, or is it just kind of he played well for 1 year and then it's just kind of So
yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I don't, obviously if they get behind, they're going to have a hard time. This one shocked me. I was really on the 49ers before the season. I thought they were, going to get back to that team that went to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And for the first 6 weeks of the season, and they were not. It was like, what is this?
Well, what's funny to me is people were talking. They kept throwing all this attention on Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, and I'm like, hold on. The idea with them is not necessarily the quarterback play. It's them being really physical, being really good on defense, and just running the ball all over you. Like, what are we talking about the quarterback? Like, they got to be able to run the ball, and it looks like they're running the ball now. So
yeah, they looked. I don't know what was going on, and then they played the Rams last week, and just what was that? I'm watching the game. What is happening here? This is not like where's this team been? Like I was just completely confused, and then they go to Jacksonville and just destroy them. Like they ran the ball 44 times. Like they're just
yeah. Which I mean, the way they're built is kind of like you probably should do that. Like
yeah. So that just surprised me.
It's kind of confusing. Yeah, it's just something where you go, why weren't you guys doing this? 2 months ago? What the hell?
Yeah. The other thing is, I think there's an ongoing debate right now. About the Arizona Cardinals. So what do you think about the Cardinals? Are you buying into them as a legit contender, or are you still waiting?
I want to, but it's just like, is Kyler Murray going to be healthy the rest of the year? I mean, they're winning without him, which speaks to you have a good roster, you got good coaching, you got a good culture there. Like that's good, that's really good. But it's like, if you don't have Kyler Murray and you don't have DeAndre Hopkins, because for them to be their best, they need to be really explosive, and they can be. They've shown that they can be. So it's like, I'm just kind of it's the injury thing is really the thing that's kind of like, it's the same thing with like the Cowboys. Like I can see, like, I have a tendency to probably be biased against the Cowboys because I feel like people have been inflating them for the past 15 years or whatever to make them better than they are. But, it's just one of those things. It's like with the injuries, I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of holding back. I'm like, I could see how they could be, but, Kyler Murray's a small guy. He got hurt last year. Like, there's no J.J. Watt anymore. I mean, they still have, pass rushers and stuff, but.
Yeah, I think I like their I like their team. I like that they're like we talked about toughness. They're tough. Like they run the football. Like they the defensive line is tough. Like and it's and they have one of those things that's like they have a real home field advantage. It's not easy to go to their place and beat them. So I really like where they're at. Obviously, yeah, they can't win the Super Bowl if Kyler Murray's not ready to go. And honestly, I think he probably could have played this week. I think they just kept him out because they have a bye next week.
Right.
So that they're just like a lot of these teams, they get all their guys healthy. Just same thing as Green Bay. If Green Bay gets everybody healthy, they're going to be really good. So I'm impressed. I was kind of like, all right, is this real for most of the season? But the last 3 weeks, and even though they got the thing is you can't go nuts because the team gets blown out. Like they got blown out last week by Carolina. Every team in the NFL gets blown out at least once.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. Like you can't possibly sustain
2 or 3 in a row. Then it's a problem. But everybody gets blown out because it's just and it's funny because people are saying, "Oh, the NFL is so crazy," and in some aspects it is, but it's kind of like this is kind of how it goes. It's a really physical sport, and so it's just like different things could happen in one game, and you could just get blown out. I mean, it's that's how it goes. I mean, it's different if you're like the Lions and you just literally figure out different ways to lose games. It's like I remember Greeny said one time, it's like you snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. It's like the reverse of the analogy. Yeah.
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, they've lost games on a 66-yard field goal. Okay, they tied a game. Okay, this game against Cleveland, they easily could have won. And then the Pittsburgh game, the guy missed a field goal, or they would have won. Like they literally, you can't get any closer to winning. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. All right, so obviously, the Patriots have kind of, they've kind of turned.
At the beginning of the year, I was mad because people were thinking the Patriots are going to be better than the Dolphins. I'm like, I think the Dolphins are going to be at least as good as the Patriots, and I was completely wrong. So
famous last words. So the Patriots seem to be a good. They're going to be in the mix with all these other teams. It seems like. So obviously,
destiny. They played Tennessee and they played the Bills twice. They played the Bills twice.
And obviously, we're definitely not Patriots fans. Obviously, we've been getting our butts kicked by them for 20 years. So, where do you stand on the Patriots being good? Does that bother you? How are you dealing with it emotionally?
I don't know. It's kind of annoying because you kind of think, oh, it's over. It's kind of like with the Spurs. Like I kept thinking it was over, and then finally it was over. But it's like, with the Patriots, it's like, is it over yet? And like then Brady leaves. It's like, is it over yet? No. The Cam Newton leaves. They draft Mac Jones. It's got to be over, right? No, it's not over. Shit. So I don't know. I'm kind of annoyed by it, but it's also just like it's literally like. For the other teams, except for the Bills, because they have Josh Allen now and they look like they're kind of headed in the right. Even the past few weeks, it looks like they're headed in the right direction. It's like the Jets and the Dolphins, dude. It's been 20 years of the Patriots dynasty. You couldn't find a quarterback by now. You couldn't get your roster like ready to roll. Like that's. I'm more frustrated with the Dolphins, than anything else because it's like you can complain about the Patriots, but the Patriots are just they're doing what they should do. The Dolphins have been a mess for 20 years. So,
I've turned a corner on it. I don't have the same level of disdain for it as I used to. Partly because I don't. They don't have the greatest quarterback of all time to bail them out anymore. So I'm not as. It doesn't upset me as much. I've mocked the Mac Jones pick. I think Mac Jones is fine, but I think there's 20 other quarterbacks that if you put them in that situation would do.
I understand. It's like we're celebrating the Mac Jones pick. It's like you couldn't have moved up and drafted Justin Fields.
Right.
If you give Justin Fields that running game and that offensive line,
right. I think there's a whole bunch of other quarterbacks that could easily do what he's doing. I don't think it's special. So I'm not really concerned about it. Like they're doing what they're supposed to do. And if these teams in the AFC don't beat them, well, you deserve what you get. Like, you need to beat them.
It's going to be. In fact, I think if the Patriots end up beating a team in the playoffs that you don't expect them to beat, it's probably going to be a coaching thing because the other team didn't come out ready to play or they didn't look like they knew what the hell they were doing. And the Patriots just, over the past 20 years, forget all this other stuff. It's just basically in most games, it looks like they know what the hell they're doing. And some of these other teams don't look like they know what they're doing.
Well, they're just going to have
or they get nervous or I don't know.
They're going to have a huge advantage in these playoffs because there's all these teams with young quarterbacks and young coaches. Cincinnati, Cleveland, the Chargers, the Raiders, Indianapolis, it's just all these teams.
Josh Allen still makes some bad decisions sometimes, especially he'll take a 25-yard sack. I mean, because he's trying to make a play. So it's like
the only coach in the AFC that's anywhere close to Belichick's level is Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin. Yeah. And Pittsburgh can't go anywhere with the team they've got. Yeah. So it's they've just got, it's just kind of so I look at it like it just kind of lined up for them. It's not because the Patriots are unbelievable. It's just because of the situation.
Well, but that's the lesson, right? You can get pretty far in the NFL if it's just you have a solid culture and you have solid coaching and you just kind of, you play like you know what the hell you're doing. Like I said, it's not necessarily hard. It's like a lot of times on defense you'll see like, 9 guys know what they're doing, and then there's a couple other guys that are way out of position. With the Patriots, it's like that rarely happens. Or if there is some guy out of position, it's like one guy. And it only happens a few times. Like they're in the right spots. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They may not be able to do it all the time, but just being in the right spot sometimes is enough against some of these teams, because some of these other teams, they just, whether it's play calling, whether it's, I'm trying to just making mistakes like penalties or something, or getting nervous in a big spot because they haven't been there before. So,
yeah. All right. So I'm going to reveal my George Thorogood rankings, which is my list of Who Do You Love by George Thorogood. This is my cheesy sports radio topic of the podcast here. Yep. So I just jotted some stuff down. I mean, I go back and forth. I mean, I kind of like Green Bay as the best team right now. Okay. I think the way that they're playing. Yes, I know they lost to Minnesota yesterday, but I mean they won that game twice. They just happened to lose at the end. But I think Green Bay needs to get some guys back on defense. But I really like what I've seen from them on defense. They went to Arizona without their 2 best wide receivers and offensive linemen out, and they beat them. And so to me, I think that's a real win. And
I can get behind that because I'm biased against Dallas. So, and that we'll see if I'm proven right or proven wrong, but I'm probably going to stick with the anti-Dallas bias, whatever. So, yeah, I could see Green Bay because they've been there before. They've been to the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. The Rams have concerned me because, Stafford's record against good teams is not good at all. And there's been times this year where they've just gotten, they've gotten their butts kicked. So Arizona, I'm concerned about the health. If they're healthy, though, I probably like them the best, but I don't know. It doesn't, and then besides that, I mean, the Bucks got some problems. They need to get Gronk back, or they need to get Antonio Brown back, or because they just,
Yeah, I mean, listen, look, obviously all this stuff I'm saying doesn't mean anything because, there's numerous examples. Like we're trying to figure out who's going to be a contender, and there's numerous examples of one team just gets hot and then they win the Super Bowl, right? I mean, Tampa Bay was 7-5 last year, and they won 6-7 games in a row and won the Super Bowl. The Giants were 9-7 one year; they won the Super Bowl. The Pittsburgh Steelers barely got in one year, and they won the. So it's kind of like we're trying to handicap this stuff now, and we'll know in about 6 weeks, who's rolling and who isn't. I had Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay slightly above Arizona, and then I had Tampa. Those are the only teams I really like. If you want to go towards, possibly love, those are the only teams that I'm really in love with. Everybody else,
that's why I was so ridiculous this morning. Nick writes like, "Yeah, the Chiefs are back. They're the scariest team in the league." I'm like, "Really, dude? Come on, man. Seriously,
the Chiefs are back.
Still got some issues, pal."
Yeah, no, listen, it's a work in progress. They still got a ways to go, but they got time to get there.
Yeah,
they still got 6 or 7 games to go. So, who knows what we'll see by then. That's really all I had as far as NFL stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, I didn't really have anything else. You want to do some college?
Yes, sir. So I thought this weekend would be the weekend of reckoning in college football. I thought some whole lot of stuff would be revealed. And, it kind of was. Ohio State absolutely laid the smackdown on Michigan State. When I heard before the game, Michigan State has the worst secondary in college football, I went, oh, geez, this is going to be bad. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is going to be ugly. And, I thought Utah had a great chance to beat Oregon, and my goodness, did they ever. They beat them like a drum. That was
Yeah.
a destruction on Saturday night. So that, they took Oregon out of it. And then the other one, which honestly raised an eyebrow, was Cincinnati not only beating SMU, but destroying them. They were up 41-0 at one point. I mean, they just – and it's not – to me, it's not the 41. It's the 0. Like, they just shut down. SMU is one of those teams they have – they play that 5 wide receivers, air raid, and they just throw it all over the place, and they shut them out. So, and then I heard SMU had the best 2 receivers out. Man, I don't care. You beat a 9 or 10 win team in college football. I don't care what FBS level it is. You beat them by 40. I'm paying attention.
Okay.
Okay. Like, let's not be ridiculous. I don't think Cincinnati's one of the best 4 teams, but come on, man, you gotta give it up. And so,
well, they needed to do something like that, so they did. So good for them. So
yeah.
You think they're going to be number 4 on when they release the rankings tomorrow night?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
So Oregon lost, that takes them out of the.
Georgia, Ohio State.
Well, see, that's going to be an interesting debate. I think Ohio State, with what they did, may pass Alabama, because Alabama beat Arkansas, but it was not impressive. They beat them by they beat them 42-35. I mean, Arkansas got a late touchdown to get it that close, but they were in a battle for 3.5 quarters.
Beat Georgia, Ohio State, Bama,
and then Cincinnati 4th. And then assuming it goes the way it is, Michigan would be 5th, and then Notre Dame would be 6th, and then Oklahoma State would be 7th. And to me, those are the top. I might throw Oklahoma in there, but those 7 teams are basically the teams that are going to be in the playoff. 4 out of those 7 anyway. So,
right.
That being said, hey, listen, Cincinnati, you guys were all complaining 4 weeks ago. You guys were all nuts. Oh, we can't get in. They're not respecting us, blah, blah, blah. Every sports writer in the country went nuts on this. Okay?
Yeah.
I said at the time, calm down. Keep winning. Keep winning. You'll get in. Okay? They're going to be 4th this week. Now, the work is not done yet. Okay?
That's the other thing. Remember, guys, once you get up there, you got to keep winning. You got to keep winning to keep it to stay in there. So
yeah. So they play East Carolina. East Carolina is a 7-win team, and then they play Houston, who's 10-1. So or 9-1. So you got Houston is ranked right now, so you got a chance to play a ranked opponent in your conference championship and beat them convincingly. So you guys gotta hey, just keep winning. I honestly, obviously, I mean, for Cincinnati, Notre Dame can't pass them because Notre Dame lost to Cincinnati. So I don't see any way that happens. So Oklahoma State, I think, has a shot because Oklahoma State has to play Oklahoma and then the Big 12 championship game probably against Baylor, who has 2 losses.
Baylor beat Oklahoma, though.
Baylor beat Oklahoma, not Oklahoma State.
Yeah, no, right, but I'm just saying, if Oklahoma State beats them, I guess it's a good win.
Yeah, no, they're going to have these are going to be Baylor. I think Baylor.
That's going to be Cincinnati's problem because if Oklahoma State does that, I mean, because they play Oklahoma, right? So if they beat Oklahoma and then beat Baylor, those are 2 good wins in a row right at the end of the year, That's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, so I think it's
blow out these last 2 teams.
Right. I think it's going to come down to who looks better. I think if Cincinnati were to really struggle against Houston or East Carolina, and Oklahoma State were to just wipe the floor with their opponents, I think that could be a problem. But I think it's Cincinnati's in pretty good shape. If they take care of their business, I think they will get in. Couple interesting scenarios. So, obviously Georgia's going to play Alabama. I mean, Alabama's playing Auburn this week, but Auburn's quarterback is out. He broke his ankle. So Alabama's going to win that game easily. And then they'll be playing Georgia. And, it's going to be an interesting thing about this game is, if Alabama wins, obviously both teams will be in. Alabama and Georgia will both be in. But if Alabama loses, this gets quite interesting. You're going to have, so you would have, let's say, assuming Ohio State, or, Ohio State or Michigan, whoever wins that game wins out. One of them will be in. Georgia will be in. Cincinnati will be in if they stay undefeated. And then it'll come down to a 2-loss Alabama versus 1-loss Notre Dame, 1-loss Oklahoma State. So the prospect of getting Oklahoma State and, not Oklahoma State, Notre Dame and Cincinnati in the playoff at the same time is interesting yet scary.
Yeah.
because if we go through all this hand wringing, okay, and Notre Dame and Cincinnati get into the playoff at 3-4 or whatever it is, it would be the opening lines on those games would be just unreal. They'd be both be 2 touchdown underdogs, but they'd be in the playoff. It'd just be the weirdest thing ever. So I don't know. I go back and forth on this. Like, what would be more interesting? Let's say Cincinnati. I like the idea of Cincinnati playing Ohio State. I really do, because they're from the same state, but they never play each other, obviously. Yeah. So I think it would be really interesting to see them in a playoff. But it's kind of like, okay, so if Cincinnati plays well, say they lose. Well, if they win, we all know everybody's going to go, well, they should have been in all this time. This is what's wrong with the playoff. If they play well and lose, everybody's going to be like, see, they were worthy. So, okay, that's something. But if Cincinnati gets blown out by Ohio State, it's just going to be like, what the hell did we put them in for? Like, you guys aren't good enough. And Notre Dame, they get blown out in the playoff every time they're in it. So everybody's going to be prepared for that. So the collective, it's just going to be funny. The collective groan by the sports media. First of all, sports media, kind of a bunch of babies, okay? Like, you guys get to go to all these free games, and all you do is whine about what's wrong with blah, 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 blah. It would be pretty funny to watch you guys, Notre Dame and Cincinnati, get in. You guys be all, oh, geez, they're going to get killed. What's the point of this? What are we doing? What a waste of time.
Be like, well, what the hell were you arguing about the whole damn year?
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of, I'll be honest with you, it's weird because I do like them trying to pick the 4 best teams, and if you have no losses or 1 loss, I kind of think you're splitting hairs depending on what your schedule is and who you beat and all that other stuff. But I guess I kind of don't if Cincinnati were to get in and Bama loses to Georgia, right? I guess I kind of don't have a problem with it if Cincinnati's undefeated and Georgia and Alabama has 2 losses. Because they haven't really looked impressive all year. Now, granted, if Cincinnati had played Alabama's schedule, they wouldn't. I don't know how many games they would have won, but it wouldn't have been that many. But there is something to be said for if you're going to get into the playoff, you need to be a good team, but you need to have the results to totally back it up. So, and if you've had 2 losses, it's kind of even though I think Alabama's clearly better than Cincinnati,
Well, but that's the interesting scenario is that Cincinnati would be in if Alabama loses. Cincinnati's going to get in anyway as long as they win. So that 4th spot would be just fascinating because it's listen, Alabama's better than Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. Let's just be clear. Okay, yeah. So if you're asking me who do I want to see now, the problem is the other issue is you put Alabama in at 4, they just play Georgia again.
You're right.
Let's say Georgia beats them by 2 touchdowns. Nobody's going to want to see that. So it's no, but we won't put, so it's the sports media, they want to help out the little guy, right? We got to get Cincinnati in there. This isn't fair. This is the right thing to do. We put Cincinnati in and then we put Notre Dame in. They're going to be like, wait a minute. We wanted to help out the little guy.
If Oklahoma State, I feel like Oklahoma State, if Alabama loses and then Cincinnati wins out, Cincinnati's in, and then I feel like, wouldn't you put Oklahoma State in? You
should. Based on the resume, they would have a much better resume.
Especially recency bias. Notre Dame's not really playing anybody.
Right.
So, if Oklahoma State has those 2 wins, it's kind of like, well, all right.
Right. Yeah, no, listen, resume-wise, honestly, if you're asking me, if Oklahoma State wins the rest of their games, they should be in over Notre Dame. They should pass them. Not only will they get an extra game, but they'll beat another ranked opponent. Like Notre Dame beat Wisconsin. Congratulations. They are ranked 15th or whatever. But Oklahoma State's going to have
Cincinnati.
Right. But Oklahoma State's going to have Iowa State, Oklahoma, Baylor. They're going to have way better wins. So yeah, like I'm fascinated. I really want like this. Basically, it looks like that scenario is going to happen. As long as Georgia beats Alabama, there's going to be a decision to make. And I'm really interested to see how the committee does this because it should be like if you're just going to say we're going to go based on merit, right? We're not going to just use the Vegas point spread. It should be Oklahoma State, like you're saying. That's really who it should be, assuming they win out. The interesting thing to me is what if Oklahoma wins out? What if Oklahoma beats? Now they would probably have to beat Oklahoma State twice because they would probably that's who would be in the Big 12 championship. But it's like Oklahoma's
twice. Like that's a pretty,
But Oklahoma's been moved down, because they haven't looked good the whole season, and so it's like it's a bigger climb to go, So that to me is the most interesting scenario. I'm kind of like at first I was kind of like, no, I want Cincinnati to lose because I want them to get out of there. Now I'm kind of like, no, let Cincinnati win, let Georgia beat Alabama, and I want to see what the committee does. This is going to be a very interesting decision. We got 2 weeks to go, so I think it's going to be. But and I was looking about, all right, what matchups do I want to see? Obviously, I want to see Georgia play. I mean, Georgia plays. It'll be pretty good. Georgia's going to play Alabama in the SEC championship, and then if they play Ohio State in the, when they get to the final game of the playoff, I'd be in on that. Yeah. I'd be in on that. So
I mean, we'll see if it's a good game. Who knows?
But college football is very interesting, and we got all these jobs open. Florida just fired Dan Mullen, so we got Florida open, LSU open, USC open. Like this is going to be, I don't know what's happening here, but it's just the craziest thing. It's the craziest thing in the world about college football. Jim Harbaugh for Michigan, right? Can't beat Ohio State. He's lost to Michigan State like 2 out of the last 3 years, and he gets an extension. Dan Mullen goes to a New Year's Day bowl game 3 years in a row. They have a rough year. They still have to give him $12 million. They're like, get out of here. It's unbelievable. I can't explain. It's like I was just thinking about this. Like Mel Tucker got offered 8-year whatever contract. For $9 million a year. And it's like these coaching contracts don't mean anything. Because in 2 years, it's like and by the way, they gave Dan Mullen an extension at Florida before this season started. And now they're like, yeah, you know what? Get him out of here. It's just, it's unbelievable. I don't even know how to explain it. And then all the rumors in the world come out. LSU has apparently offered Lincoln Riley like $96 million. So this is going to be nuts. Meanwhile, USC keeps the same substitute teacher there for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Like anybody who thinks it's not different in the South, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't even know.
That's pretty nuts. I mean, it's literally like, in the SEC, they're basically like, they're 3 games away from just jumping off a cliff and being like, get this guy out of here. I mean, literally, it's like,
And by the way, I think Dan Mullen was safe before they lost to South Carolina. Then they got blown out by South Carolina. They almost got beat by Samford, okay, who's a team with a losing record from outside their whatever crazy conference they're in, and then they got their ass kicked but they lost to Missouri. So you're exactly right, Clark. 3 games. See ya.
Yeah,
that's all it takes. So anyway, fascinating stuff. So I just had some NBA thoughts. Did you have anything else you wanted to?
We can just do NBA and then kind of close out.
Okay. So something I was hearing last week. We didn't get to do the podcast until today on Monday, but so the Warriors played Brooklyn last week, and I watched the game, and I gotta say, Golden State is quite impressive. They look really good. I mean, it jumped out at me like the depth on that team. Like they have a legitimate.
I was listening to a clip of Ryan Russillo's podcast, and he said that he's like, I'm watching the Warriors. And I think this might have been before the Nets game, but he's like, they play like they just watched Hoosiers like 8 times, and they're just like, he's like, look, I don't think Golden State is as talented as Brooklyn or as talented as a few other teams, but he's like, I mean, the attention to detail on defense this early in the season, the communication, how they're all kind of in sync is kind of amazing, given that we're only a month into the season. So,
Draymond Green has his own podcast on the Volume, by the way. Check it out. I think this is kind of like FU. It's an FU season for the Warriors because they're like kind of annoyed that everybody else is like, they're kind of done,
Yeah, everybody's taking shots at him. It's like Rob Parker. It's a fake dynasty. They had to go get Kevin Durant. Did they win titles? Yeah, then it's a dynasty. Shut up.
But that's the cool part about what they're doing is like they're pretty deep now, and they're going to get Klay Thompson and James Wiseman back. So, but a couple things they play the way the Warriors would play, but they're playing like legit defense in November, which is not something NBA teams usually do. Usually they work themselves into it. So honestly, I have the same feeling kind of watching the Heat is like, okay, guys, take it easy. Take it easy. We got a long way to go. Let's not burn ourselves out yet. But what I will say is, some of the young guys, Jordan Poole's playing really well. I like Gary Payton's son, Gary Payton Jr. I like him. He plays hard. Before the draft, there was all this stuff. Well, Golden State's just going to draft people. They're going to try to make a trade. They're just interested in trying to get a better player.
Yeah.
I watched them. I don't think so. They didn't draft Kuminga to trade him. That guy looks like Andre Iguodala, 10 years ago. He looks like legit. He's 6'7", long arms. And I see what they're doing. They're going to have Andre Iguodala and Draymond basically teach him. And by the end of the season, he's going to be unbelievable on defense. Because it's you see the skills, you're just like, oh my goodness. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He's 19. So it's just when they get everybody, they get everybody rolling, everybody worked in there. And Steph Curry, I noticed, I think this kind of happened last year. He's put on some weight. He's much thicker than he used to be. So, hopefully that'll contribute to him being healthy. But if they're healthy, I think they've got,
there's, again, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but there are more, for instance, they're playing, I believe they play Phoenix a couple times, at the end of this week or the beginning of next month. So that's because Phoenix is playing well. Phoenix, they start off struggling a little bit. They've won a bunch of games in a row. Devin Booker's obviously, he's really good, and they've got a backup for DeAndre Ayton now. So, I want to see them against. We've seen them against the Lakers. Let's see them against Phoenix. Let's see them against some of these other teams.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, does this kind of
just be entertaining? Devin Booker's fun to watch.
Well, and does this translate? The teams go, oh, the Warriors are really going to try to kick our ass. We got to come to play tonight. I wonder if that affects if these teams show up. When they're playing the Warriors. I mean, that's the way it used to be. I don't know, how it's going to be now. But, now what I will say is people need to back off on this team's, Stephen A. Smith is going crazy. This team's going to win the championship. They're the favorites, blah, blah, blah. And it's listen.
A bunch of young players in there. We got to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, so it's I think they're playing really good. But they're a great team. No, they're not a great team yet. Okay? Let's just slow down on they're a great, I'm excited. I'm glad the Warriors are back. It's fantastic. But we got to take our time. And that them blowing out Brooklyn doesn't mean anything. Okay?
Yeah.
It's NBA games in November. And, I will say that from watching that game, I like what Brooklyn has. They're deeper than they used to be. They actually play some defense. When they get Aldridge and Millsap and those guys kind of worked in to their team a little bit, I'm interested to see how they play. Harden is still working his way through it. And if New York lifts the restrictions and they get Kyrie back, I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, but
because guys, it's just so early in the season. The Lakers may end up trading Russell Westbrook or doing some other trade in the middle of the season and look completely different. So I'm not ready to go one way or the other, although I do have some concerns because they are freaking old. But it's like the Washington Wizards. I'm like, how long is that going to last?
Yeah. I think this is, we don't need to go crazy about November, but I think it's great that the Warriors came out, swinging, trying to, win a bunch of games early. I think that's fantastic.
And the thing is, if you get up like this, you can start almost thinking running away with the 1 seed. And people can say, "Oh, home field, how much is home field?" It's like, well, I think it kind of matters, especially when you got a young team. So, I think it should matter to the Lakers too, because you're not going to be able to go on the road a bunch of times and win. Like LeBron's not at that point anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, like I said, the only thing that worries me with them is kind of burnout. Like I hope at some point they kind of scale back. All right, and don't play these guys too much. And Clay is going to have to work himself back. He's not going to be able to be going 35 minutes a night.
Right back.
Right
because
off.
remember, we're not talking about Clay's not Kevin Durant. Okay. Clay is a really great shooter, and he's good on defense. He's not necessarily it's kind of just odd how weird it is seeing him drive to the basket, but whatever. But he's a great shooter, he's a great defender. He's gonna have to work himself back in. Like Kevin Durant, like it's like he came back and it's like, wow, he's just like the same, so but it's just a different thing. So yeah, it's like he's gonna, and people are like, well, if Klay Thompson comes back and is like 85% of what he was, I'm like, I think he needs to be more than that, guys. Like, slow down. Like,
yeah, I heard Nick Wright was on Dan Patrick last week, and Dan Patrick asked him, is Steph Curry going to pass Kevin Durant in terms of who's better all time? And yeah, I had the same reaction. I'm just like, I think on all these, I mean, this is my opinion. I think on all these lists, Steph Curry is a little bit too high. I think, you could talk me into he's top 20 of all time, but I think Kevin Durant is like 12th, 13th. Like, to me, Durant is just, there's Curry is difficult in his own way, but Kevin Durant is unstoppable.
Defend him. He can shoot from wherever he wants.
Right.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah, Durant is like the greatest scorer of all time. Like, I just think, now what happens is everybody brings in Steph Curry's influential to the game. Like, he's affected basketball more than, and that's true. Because of all the kids and everybody shooting threes now. And, I get the influence part, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, no.
So I just, I have a tough time with it, and it makes it look like I'm like not giving Steph Curry the respect he deserves.
Yeah, no, that's not that's the other thing that's got to stop in the sports media. Like, guys, you can downgrade somebody a little bit, and that doesn't mean that I'm like taking shots at them. Like, there's a significant, like, Kevin Durant is better than Steph Curry. That's not, Steph Curry's an amazing player. He's having an amazing career. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's the greatest shooter we've ever seen, and he's probably top, I don't know, top 25, top 30 maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to, because I mean, there's been other great shooters, but like, he's had such an effect on the players around him and stuff. And he's a pretty good passer too. And in fact, I was watching something the other day. People criticize his defense. He's not terrible on defense.
He's gotten a lot better. He's a lot better than he used to be. He was a turnstile. Now, no, he was especially in that Brooklyn game, he was guarding people. That was not like he's playing his butt off on both ends of the floor. This is not, the thing is, like, that's the better argument this year is like Steph Curry could win the MVP again, because the way he's playing out of his mind. Like, it's special what he's doing. But it's, it comes down to, and then we start rating guys. Well, he's got this many championships. He's had this many championships. Yeah, but the championships are because of who you're playing with, not just because Steph Curry's great. We saw we saw it last year when Steph Curry's got really nothing around him. They can't get into the top 8. So it's, and it's not a knock on him. He's sensational. And don't get me wrong, if there's a guy, if you gave me money, I can pay to see one guy play, it's probably Steph at this point.
Yeah.
So
fair, Kevin Durant almost beat the Bucks in the playoff series by himself.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's close.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like, Kevin Durant is box office. Don't get me wrong. It is. I'm so excited to see how this season goes. And, I mean, I was in on the Lakers, from the start of this, but if it doesn't work out for them, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
There's no dominant team there's really no dominant team in the NBA right now. So this is going to be really, really fun.
Middleton's been out for a while. Like, they're figuring it out.
Yeah, everybody will get their stuff together. We got plenty of time. All right. So that's all I had.
Yep. I think that's good.
All right, folks. Episode 14. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe. Really excited this weekend. This weekend we're going to have some awesome college football games on Saturday. So, all right, folks.
All right.